I had an animal who did nothing but reinforce my hyperactivity, my enthusiasm. I still to this day. So the animal in question, his name is Kayama. He is a dolphin.
Mm-hmm.
He was probably one of those first animals that I went, this thing is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I had the pleasure of working with him for 17, 18 years, and still to this day, so I probably haven't worked with him in 5, 6, 7 years, maybe 6 years. I still to this day get messages from staff that still work with him, updating me on what he's doing.
Sick.
Still referenced as, Deane's favourite, or he thrives when you work with him off fast. He wants to do everything 100 miles a minute, and when I am working 100 miles a minute and am over enthusiastic, he does nothing but reinforce me with, I'm going to do that twice as hard and twice as fast.
Kind of animal where the doing the behavior itself is reinforcing.
Absolutely. And he will be vocal while he's doing it.
I love that.
He vocalizes when you bridge another animal. He's like the cheerleader on the side. You're like, someone else is working and you've got him, and he's like, yeah, good job. And it's one of the supervisor now of that department, Christina. She's an amazing trainer. She works with him. She used to sum it up perfectly when we would all work together. She would say that Kayama and myself have the same personality. She said, when I work with Kai, it reminds me of working with you.
Dang. Oh, so
and he is the most annoying dolphin you could ever have. He is the little brother that you didn't want but love nonetheless. And that she said, you and him are two peas in a pod.
Oh, that's nice.
I love it. So it did nothing for everyone else around me, unfortunately. It just got reinforced with me being an absolute moron.
Sick. David bloody Premack, or as I call him, the man, the myth, the legend, the goat who weaponized desire. So when Skinner was putting, pigeons in missile tubes and electrocuting rats for pressing the wrong lever, Premack looked at the chaos a little bit further and thought, why don't we ask the animal what it wants to do, find out what actually motivates the individual, then try and make it earn that event it wants to do. So this is where the invention of Premack's principle comes along. If you've ever attended any of my workshops or spoke to me for more than 5 minutes, I am incapable of delivering either one of those things without mentioning Premack's principle. So, psychologist, born in Ohio, 1925, and went to the University of Pennsylvania and later at UC Santa Barbara. And he wanted to really look at real life behavior. And instead of starting with small animals like most people do with mice and rats and birds and stuff, he went straight into primates and humans. And his question was remarkably simple: what if behavior itself is the reward? And I think the way that the three of us train, it's just like, man, this bloody legend sums it all up. And he's been saying it since the 1920s. So he was basically saying he would give people a map of motivation, and one that he really believed wouldn't collapse when you took the animal outside of the lab or outside of the Skinner box. So it's real world applications, which again, I just think it's the bomb. So he said the reinforcer isn't always food. It's not it doesn't need to be a primary reinforcer. Whatever the organism wants to do more than the thing it is currently doing can be your reinforcer. So if you're trying to shape behavior, it's not just about how do I deliver food or sex or water or freedom or whatever. It is, what does the animal want in this context, and how can I utilize that to shape more desirable behavior? And it's, the same with people, right? And the other big one too, which I wrote down here to myself, what the F, was he worked out really early on is that these two events don't have to be simultaneous. They don't have to be within a specific window of each other. Is like the time frame we can really zoom out and go, if a more desirable behavior is happening consistently after something you're working on, that it'll reinforce it. You don't have to worry about 3-second windows of association. And I think you guys probably know that I absolutely hate it when people try and be as fast as possible with their rewards for their animals. And it's like, click pay. And it's like, well, you were moving for your pouch. There wasn't enough time for You haven't even conditioned a bridge properly yet. I mean, this is something that back in the day, 20-year-old Ryan, I was already going to people, when you're conditioning a bridge, you don't have to throw the food at the exact time, and people get caught up in this thing, you pairing the reward. Like, just because they're paired doesn't mean that they don't need to be delivered at the same time. In contrary, you actually want a bit of a gap. So Premack was all into this, nearly 100 years ago now. So Skinner warned that delay in reinforcement kills conditioning, and Thorndike predicted that cats escaping out of mazes needed instant escape to be reinforcing, and Watson said, scare the baby, get the job done. But Premack saw animals and humans would be capable of holding out for what they really wanted. He said reinforcement is not about value. It's not about reinforcement is about value. It's not about speed and the timing of it. So look, there's a million different examples within lifestyle that we can all think of it. But it is, the equivalent of, some version of eat your broccoli, then you can have your your chocky or whatever it may be. But, for within dogs, we say acknowledge a dog wants to sniff trees and piss on everything on walks. And then we might say using Premax, it's like, you might use food and or a bit of leash pressure or guidance to help the animal loose lead walk. But when it's been sustaining a nice loose lead walk for a bit, you're like, it probably doesn't want to just keep getting treats for loose lead walking. What it probably does want to do is something much more natural and go sniff. So it's like, if you loose lead walk for a while, then we'll just go sniff for ages together and just let you go sniff. And that to me is like a really nice, simple sort of Premax event. And kind of the reverse of that, where we see in a lot of training sessions with all different taxa, is that the animal will achieve a peak performance, and then the person will be like, I want to finish on a high. And it's like, yeah, you want to finish that repetition on a high, but people get sort of caught up in this thing of like, the animal did the best performance ever, so then I'm going to recall it and put it away. And it's like, no, man. And this is where Premack would be rolling in his grave. It's like, okay, finish what you're working on, right? Let's say we're working on voluntary bloods, which we've been talking about a lot about today. Finish that session there on that component, but then move on to an event that the animal would prefer to do. It might be cognition work, it might be working on other behaviors, but don't chuck them in the car. So it's like the opposing example I always say with people, they go, my dog does amazing recalls, but when we're at the park and I'm moving back towards the car, I ask the dog to come, the dog won't come. It's like, yeah, because the dog follows like the kind of reverse of Premack's principle. It goes, whenever you recall me at the end of the walk, the thing that, like, I don't care how much chicken you've got, I want to be out sniffing. You're doing a recall, which works 9 times out of 10, but then you load me in the car predictably within 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. The association window doesn't exist, right? And the dog still knows, no, man, you're going to put me in the car. So yeah, I mean, I just think Premack didn't know exactly how we're going to utilize his theories about training animals, but he explained how we can utilize how we actually live with animals and how humans are motivated to do behavior in order to access greater things that they want. So he really helped us define that you do have to know your animal. You've actually got to understand what they really care about and what they want to happen next, not just assuming what are rewards. Everyone doesn't want just cash or, time off or whatever it may be. Everyone learns differently. And once I do the thing, I get the next good thing, which is goat status from Premack.
It's funny that even those things, and again, it's, about making people more aware of these things, similar to the other podcasts, other topics we've spoken about. You may have a breakdown in behavior, say with a blood draw, and you may be racking your brain going, he's had reinforcement for this, but, it may be something as simple as your follow-up behavior or, your follow-up whatever. Sometimes we'll, say for working the elephants, we may have them in one yard doing something like bloods while some of the other team members are setting up a bamboo forest, a hay bag, whatever, to go, hey, that was done, we're done, let's move up here. Oh, surprise, look what you've got. It's about that forward thinking that, hey, I'm going to do this behavior. He's going to nail it. He's going to get bulk Rio from me, and then he's going to double it up with.
Awesome, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I always try and ask, the people that I'm, nowadays I'm teaching a lot more people and less hands-on with animals, but I'm saying, what's a behavior that 10 times out of 10 that animal's going to do and it really enjoys doing? They go, oh, he's got an amazing retrieve. It could be a dugong with a retrieve or a dolphin or a seal or whatever. And he loves trashing that thing. It takes him a while, but he loves trashing. I'm like, great. We're going to save that up for after we do the control work, the thing that's really important. Then we finish that on a high. Then we use Premack's principle to follow up with an event that that animal thoroughly enjoys. And they go, oh, that makes total sense. And I reckon it's more important than, I don't know, like almost timing, I mean, timing's amazing and we all froth out on it. We watch videos of trainers that have great timing, but I feel like if you're methodical in the way that you train your animal's more likely to be forgiving for, how sloppy you are with the clicker or whatever. If it goes, hey, every time we work on this thing, I always get something else. And me, you know what I like. Great, I'm going to do that thing afterwards. I think, oh man, it's just, for me, I think it's so ridiculously underrated still, and that people, I'll say to workshops of people who are amazing trainers and handlers and zookeepers and stuff, I'm like, I'd be using Premack that one, and they'll be like, glazed over, what? And I'm like, oh, come on, guys, you don't know who Premack is?
I use Premack, but whatever.
Yeah, MacBook.
But yeah. But even having forethought about maybe releasing that animal, and I'm thinking here those highly social animals, dolphins, primates go, hey, great job, and then you're like, go out with the really dominant one that's probably going to beat the shit.
The
it's
reverse of that, yeah.
Yeah, just being, but being aware of that, going, actually, you know what I'm going to do to finish this up and to then follow with some Premack? Can you actually take those two animals over there? Yeah, because that's going to make this whole situation. It's again knowing those animals, knowing those. We'll say it till we go blue in the face. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's all of those things combined, and I think it comes in with your timing, with your knowing your timing, knowing your reinforcers are great, knowing what you've already got prepped. That like, it's so much more than just this one event that you're training. Yep. It's how was that animal prior to this session? Yeah. Should you even bother doing this now because it's not going to work?
Well, exactly. Hey, and that's I think the other thing that Premack's principle makes us aware of is what was the animal doing prior to your training session? Mm-hmm. Because if you go attempt to take a male sea lion out for a session, or even a male dog out for a session, while there's a female who's about to go into season, you have to understand that you mean nothing, right? And that's okay. But you really shouldn't be working on your high priority behaviors now, because there is no way in hell I can make the event that I really need to be reinforcing right now. I'm better off. Like, I'm actually going to undo it. It's going to become an aversive for the animal. If I say, hey, leave that female who's, giving you chemical signals and pheromones and whatnot to come and work on, crate training or whatever, or scent detection, and the animal's going to go, jam it, man. And then in their head, you've possibly poisoned that behavior because it's associated with the, leaving a highly reinforcing event that in its head it's going, I would much rather be shagging or just sniffing.
But sometimes you do both.
Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah.
I think as well, it's thinking about that big picture. It's a really good way to flesh out a training session. Like, I think particularly when you're a new enthusiastic trainer and maybe you've got one animal you're working with, whether it be that first seal you're allowed to train or whether it be your puppy at home. Yeah. You can want to just train them all the time, and their actual rate of being able to learn a new behaviour doesn't match up with your level of enthusiasm. Mm-hmm. And so, like you say, you go out and you do your couple of repetitions of it, and as you mature a bit as a trainer, you will recognise that I've actually kind of maxed out on what I can do on that behaviour for this session or this day. So then, rather than going again and again to the point where you're actually potentially going to be detrimental to that, thinking, okay, but if I run through my husbandry routine, or if I now practice a bit of retrieval in the case of the dogs and things like that, you can end up making a much bigger session. And when you look at it through this scope, you realise that there's a huge benefit to having that extra time, even if you're not kind of achieving something. Yeah,
you're not just chipping away at that same repetition on that same behaviour that you so desperately want to achieve. But on that, so let's talk about, say, ratios or frequencies of certain behaviours. And I know, again, this is going to be nuanced to your animal, but let's say you go that middle of the road species, whether we're talking like Tasmanian devils, seals, dogs, dollies, primates, whatever, like those pretty relatively high intellect animals that have a high capacity for eating and learning. If you're working on something like a complex behavior or or perhaps something that involves discomfort like injections, what are some of the ratios that you guys go to per week, per month, per day, whatever? You tell me. What, like, if I said to you, right, Deane, I'm working on blood injections with a Tasmanian devil, how many sessions per week should I be going for if I want to achieve it in a couple of months?
I don't think you can have too many setups. I want that process to be known well to the animal, but I also want to have that as part of an everyday session. So for me, my goal is to do it every session.
Yep.
Every session, come in, do a setup, bang, great, short, sharp, to the point. Let's move on to something else. The next session, I'm going to go for duration or double effort or whatever. As general rule for our any kind of injection or stick, I want to do, and again, this will change based on taxa, but as a general rule, I want to be doing 20 to 50 setups.
Yeah,
per one
stick.
Actual stick.
Yeah, I like that.
But I want to make it varied and however I can. I want to, we always say that, there are times, and I think it's really important to know when predictability is your friend and when predictability is your biggest enemy.
Yeah.
Because I feel that there are, that two extreme contrast with predictability. Sometimes most of the issue behaviors that I'm asked to go in and fix, I would say 80-90% of the time, predictability is the reason why it's
killed.
It's gone.
Yeah.
But where predictability is your friend and not, I think plays part in this. But
I mean, everything you just said, I think is bang on, and I think it's all like highlights and nuances of it. But there was this, and I struggle sometimes because I've got to finish a very complicated day of training sessions with 15 different species, and then suddenly write like really quick bullet soundbite kind of notes for people, and go, how many reps per week should they do on that thing, knowing that their time is limited and their resources are limited. And I think with some complex behaviors, I'm just sort of like, just do it 3 times a week, and I just like I didn't pluck it out of thin air. I know there's some research on complex behaviors, but I think, what you just said is such better advice, because it's like, you can prep for the complex behavior. You can do all these things that support the uncomfortable thing or the difficult learning thing. It doesn't mean you have to do the thing. You can do it more times than 3 times per week, but they should just be things that support that end goal, right? Like, it's like, you don't have to necessarily sniff the narcotics every single session, but you should be doing things that support that.
And I think about that with seals at Seal Theatre, how we might be training for a blood draw or something like that, and often I'd be going to the stage to do a show session, but on the way I'd put them on the station where those sessions occur, and maybe I'd do hey, remember this is that thing that comes before it, and hey, you're doing such a good job, let's go do that high energy flip.
Premack.
You almost Premack.
Precisely.
Yeah.
I think when you're in tune to that stuff, you're probably doing it more than what you think, because you go, hey, I know, there are probably people out there doing it that don't even
realize
know what it is. But even it's as simple as, say we have, you're on your run past and you go, oh, I've got, this diet to give to the animal, rather than just going, well, here you go, go give it into the spot where, Ellie's, I got to chuck him a couple of biscuits of hay. Yeah, I'm going to chuck it on the scales. There you go.
Yeah.
Or set it up in a spot where I know that I'm going to need to add some reinforcement here. You're getting this for free anyway. There you go.
I think the difficulty with all this is, though, like it's being mentally not lazy. Like I think a lot of trainers are mentally lazy, and so if it doesn't come natural to that person, just be like, hey man, like you can chip away at that throughout the week without having to be a big deal. Or sometimes they need permission to it. Like one of the young guys I was teaching last week, we were talking about, so he was doing some very complex stuff with some Antarctic penguins. And then he's like, yeah, man, I'm just struggling for time, because he often needs 2 people to help him, big colony of birds. And then he's like, to get the whole thing done. And he's like, could I break that down in any way? I was like, oh yeah, man, you could just bring him into the zone and just let him go. He's like, oh, well, I can do that every day. And I was like, oh shit, I should have given him permission that like, you don't have to do the whole thing, which is get on the scales and do tactile and then, prep them for a wing band change or whatever. It's like, yeah, just take them in there and set it up so the reinforcement history near that behavior or where that behavior is going to occur is there.
Half your work's done to then go over to that spot. But I think it's been really eye-opening for me in the last couple of months as, we've delved into so many other projects that we have going on at the moment that I forget, because I've been doing this for such a long time, all of those little extra nuances and steps that I do subconsciously now, we all do subconsciously, just how many there are as we're writing stuff, I was like, which will lead to this, which also leads to this, which also you need to know this, which also this. So it's that little reminder to go, hey, we need to be doing this. Also, if you can't, this bit will help them, it helps me, I've had similar conversations where I'm like, when I'm training somebody, I'm like, if all you get today is X, great. Don't worry about Y, Z, we'll get there.
Yeah.
But 3 or 4 extra sessions on X are going to make Y, Z
so much
10 times easier.
Yeah.
But we actually looked at this recently. It was a conversation I had when someone was asking about some of the successes Azu's had over the last 2 or 3 years, since we introduced a training program to animals that had never been trained with staff who had never trained before. One of the big things we set up early on was finding ways to quickly chuck into your schedule everything that you knew that you had to do for the following day. So even things like every single department has a dummy blood kit sitting there waiting to go. So you can just go, we're going to do a blood. The amount of sessions we would have gone to in our career where someone's like, I didn't bring the needle, or I should have got the swabs. Oh, hang on, I'll go back and get the swab. Literally at every station across
and that costs
zoo,
you nothing in the grand scheme of things.
Nothing. Yeah. So we go, we're going to do bloods.
It's here.
There's the kit, ready to go. Obviously, with those particular species that are having multiple sessions a day, like our Ellies will get between 4 to 6 sessions a day.
Yeah.
We have a whiteboard with, hey, this is what we're going to do today, already prepped and ready to go.
Yeah.
So that I'll know at 12:30 I'm doing an odor detection session. Sometimes I'll walk into the barn and the stuff that all the buckets are ready to go. Odor detection's waiting to go. We know what reinforcers we're going to use when, just
communicated with your team. And that helps
bit of
with
planning.
That mental laziness too, because we all do slip into it. But if you've thought it out beforehand and said, hey, this is what I endeavour to achieve tomorrow, then you're not having to think, what am I supposed to work on today? You've already done that thinking for you.
I think as well, there's lots of little ways when you're breaking it down into small steps like that where you can go, I know that I just need to free feed this animal right now, but you're like, how can I achieve something out of this session? I'm going to put on the X-ray apron, so at least there's a little bit of familiarity with that, or I'm going to, make them do a good sit and stay before they go and find their food bowl or whatever it is. There's just little things that you can do so that no opportunity is wasted. Yeah.
We have that as well, especially, again, the small team that we have with the elephants. We'll have on the whiteboard, we have a whole section on the whiteboard that's, hey, there's some criteria breakdown here for one of our faults. If there's a breakdown in criteria, it's because we've caused it.
Yeah.
I can run past on that board if I'm just going to go chuck them a piece of hay and I go, or a biscuit of hay, and I go, trunk raise, not crash hot, great. Trunk raise, perfect, great, there you
biscuit,
go. I'm not wasting that Rio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you've inspired me. I'm going to write some more things at home for our dogs and stuff, just like going, we'll sporadically do things like, hey, if you're going to free feed this dog, her loading into the car is kind of clumsy or slow or cheeky. Every bit of food now, please deliver in the car. But there's so many other things we could do.
I think that
a quick stop.
New vehicle in the ramp at your place was a good example where someone went, hey, it's on the vehicle, it's sitting there, and give the opportunity to feed the dog up there instead. And so many
now we
dogs
have all these young dogs self-loading up ramps into different vehicles because they're like, this gets paid every now and then, so I'm just going to offer it up, which is the most delightful behaviour. You can send these young dogs from 100 metres away into the cars.
We'll even go to the point now it kind of filters down. The Carney team will occasionally go, we'll walk down there.
To be fair, these aren't people with missing teeth who are working showground rides, are they?
No, they are. We've been training. No. Get away from your cousin. No.
Carnivore
team.
Yeah.
We'll go down and there will be in the cheetah fridge the 3 sessions that we have planned for that day. The food is split into what you'll need for what session.
Yeah.
So you can walk down there, grab your
so
bucket,
good,
grab your whatever, and you just walk out. And, it's not there. We say, a session's 10 minutes? You'll need 15 minutes out of your day to do it. But then when you prep your food, grab your stuff, go back, you're like, oh, there's 30, all of a sudden it's 30, 35.
Out. Yeah.
But if you're prepped and you're ready, that means that instead of doing 3 sessions that day, we will have done 2. Yeah. Look at that over the week. This way we're getting good success and good reps in because we've done our homework prior to.
Yeah, well done.
I love a plan. Give me a tick sheet. Give me a whiteboard. Officeworks, we're going.
Yeah. Sick. Nice one. All right. Premack took he took a couple of wild turns. That was good fun.
Good on you, Premack.
Yeah.
God, don't give him any more reason to love Ryan Premack tape.
I know. It'll be on my gravestone.
I'm surprised Lennox's name wasn't Premack.
Premack, yeah. All right. Over to you, brother.
Talk a bit more about human behaviour.
Yuck, I hate humans.
So I think I'll talk a bit more. Actually, no, we'll just launch into it. Now, one of the areas that we do some work in is on cynophobia clinics. So cynophobia is the phobia of dogs.
Not signs, like I thought. Terrified of signs.
Yeah.
Stop.
I bet that's the thing, though.
Yeah.
And so we work with a great guy called Anthony Berrick. They're his clinics, and we just do a bit of assistance in the final part of it where we bring in some different dogs for the people who've been through his clinics to get to interact with. And when they're working with him, they learn a lot about dog behaviour. They learn some skills and strategies to work comfortably around dogs. And so the idea is we bring in dogs that they haven't yet met and they get to practice that with our dogs. So I'd been doing this work with Anthony for a little while when we brought a new dog home into our household. We already had a pretty old Kelpie at that point, and old enough that she was really of no kind of threat to anyone. So she was just pretty neutral, floating about the place, and
like an Ottoman.
Yeah, that's right. So look,
they are not neutral at all.
So looking back now, my daughter Florence, who I'm trying to think how old she would have been at that point. I think she would have been 28? About 3.
Oh. I can't tell with their ages.
She probably actually did have some nerves around Tessie, our old Kelpie, but it was all just so kind of neutral and normal that she just kind of had learnt how to deal with that. And it was actually an interesting series of events because the day before Texie came home, I actually went to a farm where a friend of ours works and brought 2 lambs home.
That's right.
And so when I arrived home and opened up the back door of the car and these lambs ran out, Florence freaked out at that point. She was wigging about that. So it probably should have been an early warning sign that she wasn't quite as comfortable with animals as I was and my eldest daughter was. So that was probably an early sign. There is a picture of my eldest daughter proudly standing with the lambs and Florence kind of just in shot while she's trying to hide away from it. So then the very next day I drove 3 hours up the coast, met Ryan, swapped him these 2 lambs.
2 lambs for a dog.
For a 3.5-year-old, very energetic English Springer Spaniel by the name of Tex.
My goodness, your days of swapping things in the car have changed.
Bodily fluids.
Yeah. And so when Tex came home and got out of the car, my wife melted because she's a big fan of any brainless dog with droopy ears.
Not because she's made of ice.
And Florence literally ran screaming into the house and hid on the table in the kitchen, standing up there. And Tex, who had no kind of
manners,
I think maybe followed her in there and up onto the table. It took a little while for Tex to learn that everything didn't belong to him.
Yeah.
He used to help himself to anything off any surface. And so that thus followed I think we're probably looking at least 3 weeks of really, really heavy management of dog and child to get them to live into harmony. And so fortunately I'd been working with Anthony helping other people, and so I'd learnt some of the tricks of his trade. I didn't have to pay out for Florence to go and do the full cynophobia clinic, but understanding how he managed people around dogs through that clinic was a really big one. So, and I look back to my childhood, I was actually pretty nervous of dogs, not full-blown cynophobia level, but I was definitely uncomfortable around dogs because I didn't understand their behaviour. And one of the biggest mistakes that people make with kids and anything they're afraid of, but in this case dogs, is saying, oh, you're okay.
Yeah.
I as a parent...
You're not. It's
no,
going to
that's
get
right.
you.
I as a parent know that dog is safe, which, is probably overcalculation from many parents, but therefore I'm just going to tell you you're fine. I don't want to create any social awkwardness by trying to control this situation further. And that just completely takes away that power from the kids.
Totally, yeah.
And it is the worst possible thing you can do in that scenario. So
I think it was him that I first heard someone say the expression, like when you think you're going to be afraid of something, you as the parent and or you as the person experiencing the fear, it's like allow space for that.
Yeah.
Like acknowledge it and go, oh yeah, I'm going to feel that feeling and I know that that's going to be there, instead of going, I don't want to feel that, or you don't need to feel that. It's like, which is kind of counterintuitive, I reckon. But as soon as you go, no, acknowledge
Let's acknowledge it.
Yeah,
and,
fully.
All right, what are we going to do about that?
Yeah.
And I think once you've had some experiences and built some resilience, you've got a space probably, okay, I can deal with that. One of the really important things that I learnt with helping Florence through this situation was she needed some control over that situation.
Yeah.
So as a starting point, we put complete kind of management in place around Tex. He needed that to learn his place in the household anyway. Sure. So our backyard at that time meant that we could shut gates and he could be down in the backyard and not access the house and the veranda where we kind of existed. If he was in the house, he was on a tie-up, being held on a lead or in a crate. And so even that initially was a bit of an adjustment. Florence needed to get to a point where she could trust that, okay, we've got control in this situation.
Yeah.
And all steps of the way, we would say, hey, Florence, are you comfortable if I bring Tex into the house? I have him on a lead.
Yeah.
And she would kind of grant permission for that. And little by little, we're kind of pushing her, helping her to make that next step. We're not just like, we're heading to a goal where we can coexist. We're not kind of planning on doing this forever.
Yeah.
And then another really helpful step was this was actually around kind of COVID time, so everyone was a bit locked down, and we went on some family bushwalks, and we were able to help her to see that when we were out in the bush, Tex had, we were the last thing on Tex's mind. Yeah. And so when we were walking as a family, I could have Tex off lead, she could be walking with my wife, who could pick her up at any moment, and she could see that there was no chance at all that Tex was going to come buzzing up to her because there was a million other things that are of interest. So she built confidence there. And then other examples were if she was going down to the trampoline, which had a net at that point, I was like, oh, while you're on the trampoline, do you mind if Tex is loose in the backyard? And so giving those kinds of bits of permission. And so this process continued over quite a while, and then we got to a point one day where it was just me and her walking out in the bush, and Tex was off lead and chasing things that he probably shouldn't have been chasing. And she said to me, when we get home, you don't need to put Tex on lead.
Awesome.
And from that moment on, there was actually a period of like kind of trying to reel her back in a bit, because for her, that just flicked a switch where suddenly she was too comfortable with all dogs, where she would see, somebody's German Shepherd tied up out the front of a shop and she'd want to go and stand on it kind of thing. So I mean, that's just our personal little story with Florence and how we kind of overcame that. Obviously, it can be a lot more complex in other situations.
But there's so much value in overcoming a phobia. And I know, coming again, there was another one, those psychologists that I was either studying or working with who said that a big fallout of people overcoming one particular phobia is that they then leave their partner or they leave their job or whatever, because they realise, I've been scared of spiders my whole life, or dogs, or whatever it may be. They overcome that fear working with psychologists and they go, wow, that feels phenomenal. I've always been scared of leaving my job or leaving my abusive partner, and like the next day, like, I'm out of here. It's so empowering, and it can kind of swing the other way. And I reckon a lot of things, like I definitely think I was uncomfortable in the ocean as a kid, and then so overcoming that fear, then you become obsessed with it, a bit like your daughter there, overcomes it and goes, oh, I love dogs now because it feels so good to like get that reinforcement past the phobia. Like I reckon if you went back through all of our childhoods, we all probably had moments of sorry, I'm sorry, that's a real song.
Jesus.
But yeah, like overcoming that fear or that, hesitation, then leads to curiosity, and then suddenly it's like passion. Sick one.
Absolutely.
Bring it. Okay, so what probably a lot of people don't know about a lot of the jobs you and I have done, Steve, is I would now be on at least 6 or way more, 7 or 8, 9 different eradication programs with mammals, invertebrates and things that have been in places where they shouldn't be, and almost exclusively, well, not completely, but predominantly training dogs to find things that are supposed to be eradicated from an area. So rats on islands, rabbits on islands, feral cats in sanctuaries and things like that, invasive ants, all that sort of jazz. And what has really intrigued me and interested me time and time again, and almost probably like frustrated me a little point of like an ego or an arrogance thing, is when people who have been running the program just go, oh, you're just one of the dog guys, and just think that we know nothing about behavior, when nothing could be further from the truth. That a lot of my passion started with rabbits before I knew about dogs.
I think we're dog people because we're interested in behavior.
Yeah, exactly. Like the dogs have come second to behavior. And so some of the wild assumptions people have made in these scenarios about ants and about rabbits and about rats and mice has just blown my mind. And I guess, the interesting thing has been how much behavior can shift away from the model when an animal is put under stress. And I think some of the lessons we saw from some of the eradication programs with rabbits, and then doing behavior that has never been recorded in rabbits. And it's like, yeah, but when they know that they're being hunted to extinction within this island or within this area, they're no longer being loyal to a latrine, or they're no longer just staying within their warren. They're roaming 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 kilometers a night looking for, conspecifics, looking for escape methods or whatever. And it just got me thinking about instances where you've seen an animal perform behavior that you would just go, bloody hell, no one has ever recorded that. Why would that occur? Discuss. I know I'm throwing you guys on this at the last minute. This is very much part of my design, but it got me. The amount of times where we've spoken about something, you go, why the hell did it do that? Whether it be, a seagull, at Seal Theatre being ballsy enough to steal a fish from outside of a seal's mouth or whatever. Have you had one of those moments where you go, this just, or even on those eradication efforts, Steve, where we've seen rats go undetected within a human population for nearly 2 years, getting so cryptic they can live amongst humans for 2 years before they, eventually get found again, assumed eradicated.
I think it's a good thought process to have, in the fact that we can condition behavior in a dog. Yes, we rely on their natural instincts. Why? Because that sets us and the animal up better to succeed. And we can train them these absolutely phenomenal behaviors. We are so naive to think that the same learning events aren't occurring that aren't necessarily being trained per se, but those animals are figuring out, my mate Jimmy got eaten for using that same warren because that dog's been back there. I may just not use that today, and I'm going to go crap over here. And then if we aren't thinking of those things as well and being a part of that for a lesser, don't shoot me, but an evolutionary process that's happening in a very small, very quick manner. Actually, it's a training. It's a learning process. Yeah. It's a training.
Yes, true.
Like, to be honest, I think that though in this example, your dogs that you've trained are now then training rats and rabbits to, they're trainers incidentally. These are all incidentally, accidentally trained behaviors. But like, again, my brain just starts going crazy with that. And you look at behavioral changes that happen with the same species. Again, not to talk killer whales, but it's the same species depending on where it is in the world.
Yeah.
It's going to adapt. You even have those Shark Bay dolphins, the dolphins off Monkey Maya.
Yeah.
Again, probably second only to Randy Wells dolphins in Florida that have been studied since the bloomin' 60s. The Monkey Maya dolphins are probably just after that, but probably one of the longest studied populations, certainly in Australia. In that population, which is they will all interact with each other, you have the sponge carriers, which is one matriline that will wear sea sponges over their head so they can dig through rocks to look for the food they like. You have the rhythm family who have learnt to hunt fish in that deep of water. They will hydroplane, but it's one family group that do it. Then you've got the beach dolphins that had learnt to eat food from humans on the beach and had learnt, that particular foraging strategy, even though it was kind of easier. These are all dolphins that are in the same population, but they have all each figured out their own way.
Yeah, to survive in this world.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what I was, hoping we'd get at, is that I guess the driving factor which gave me the shits in all those scenarios was these assumptions, because you read enough papers, everyone can get on the internet and find a scientific paper to back any bit of rhetoric they've got going on in their head right now, but the naivety to go, this is how they will perform, is just blows my mind when we've got so many examples of animals breaking the rules.
Well, why is it that we can train animals? It's because that's a natural process for them to adapt to their environment.
Yeah.
And so when we're thinking about training animals, it's us coming in with a specific plan that I want to get this creature to do this thing.
Yeah.
But, seals weren't identifying and marking bombs until the Navy taught them to do it.
Yeah.
So cool, by the way.
So obviously, as an environment changes and extra stresses are put on them, they're going to adapt to that and they're going to start doing some crazy things. I think another part of that as well is that people are given far too much credit that they will actually notice things around them. How often have we gone to do koala surveys in an area and some local said, won't see a koala here, mate. And you're like, there's actually one in that tree above you. Or, we never see rabbits here, or we don't have any rats here. Or if the rats were still here, people would be seeing them.
Yeah.
And, we just know that is not the case.
Not always the case. Yeah. Well, seldom the case. We're humans nowadays are not that observant, let alone observant of animal behaviour.
Not that it would take a whole host of episodes, but again, just my train of thought, not here to debate the pros and cons of animals in human care, as much as I will advocate for it. The good ways, obviously, and the good facilities and facilities that have behavioural programs and all of those sorts of things. But we look at how animals can adapt and thrive in situations where, your anti-human care people will say, it's they can't, this is bad. They do it. They do it in the wild. They do it in every capacity. Sure, there are terrible situations and
yes, of course.
Not into the debate, but we know that they can. In fact, animals quite often with the more complex cognitive systems are built to survive better in changed environments.
Yeah, and will follow people around. You look at how many Australian natives have capitalised on humans, like kangaroos and magpies, ringtail possums, kookaburras, brushtail possums. Like, they all thrive in excess of natural, pre-colonisation days. Their numbers will thrive in the presence of people.
I think you look at that fur seal that famously hangs out on the Opera House steps, and if it didn't need to enter the water to get its food,
it wouldn't. Same as the one at Harry's Cafe. The Harry's Cafe. You've seen people throw pies in the water and think that the seal goes in to eat the pies, which is going in and nailing the brim as they come up to eat the pies. He just smashes some brim, gets up, it's like, done. Again, next going to hang out at the hot dog and pie cafe. Yeah.
I mean, it almost throws into your old clever Hans in a way when people are so many humans are going, oh, this is happening or this isn't happening. I'm like, I don't know if you're quite reading that properly.
Yeah. There's probably a few different explanations as to why that behavior is occurring.
He eats pies.
Yeah.
Or the fish that are coming
More
up
likely.
Yeah.
The pies are getting eaten.
Yeah. You're not,
Yeah, he does.
I mean, the fish ate the pie, the seal ate the fish, I guess, but no.
Yeah, ring it.
Ding-a-ling.
This is a quick one, lads. Read a scientific paper. It's probably a couple of years old, but it came up in conversation as well. Developing some training plans for octopus in a facility, participating in research into dexterity of their tentacles and stuff like that, and looking at preferred reinforcers. And there was a pretty cool paper a couple of years ago, I think, it may only be a year ago, that proved that cephalopods will be more than happy to wait up until at least 130 seconds delayed for a slightly better reinforcer than the one they're being offered. So it was a really well-designed experiment. You can Google it. It's like delayed gratification in cephalopods, I think is the title of the paper. And you can offer them two choices. One is, say, your standard frozen shrimp, or one is a live shrimp. And if you go to the chamber that has the deceased shrimp in it, as soon as you approach it, it'll open immediately and you have it. If you go to the other one, the first chamber will be removed, but you might be required to wait in excess of 2 minutes. And the cephalopods will, like 10 times out of 10, just go, I'll take the good gear. I've got all day to wait out here. And it just, it to me, like someone's gone out to do the science to empirically prove it. But David bloody Premack, he comes back again. It's like you and the killer whales, Deane. It's not quite.
Do not compare me to you.
It's not quite Premack principle, but it does highlight again how animals are more than happy to wait, and association still occurs if the reward is better. So yeah, I will be harping on about this forever, but don't worry about your timing. You don't need to be fast with your rewards if your reward is worth it. Your animal will learn and wait and work for a better reward event.
So it makes my brain go straight to those people at McDonald's that'll go, we'll wait for fresh chips, thank you.
Yeah. And you go, weirdos, take the cold ones.
And then it's like,
and get out of here.
Yeah. No, I got a limp chip.
Yeah.
Presumably that whole concept was introduced with
approximations.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's an immediate reveal of this tube being the live tube. So I guess just in consideration, when you are introducing the concept of a bridge, you are going to need a much closer
association.
Yeah.
And you need to be cognizant of what happens between your marker and the learning event. So yeah, I think they built that out. But I mean, I remember I got to a point with the leopard seals where I could do a training session underwater behind the perspex, do a whole session, not reinforce them once, physically with food, and then bridge, and then walk around, say hello to some visitors, go up to a fridge, open it up, get some food, and then go and pay your animal. 5-minute delay, and the animals, their behaviour would only improve over time. So yeah. Anyway, that's my little creature feature on cephalopod. Thank you to Cephalopod Learning, which, by the way, if you they're the only, to my knowledge, the only invertebrate from an animal ethics standpoint around the world that have honorary vertebrate status. So most invertebrates in zoos and universities and research facilities, your invertebrates, you can kind of torture and do whatever you want. We assume they have no pain threshold or anything like that. But cephalopods have honorary vertebrate status. So there you go. I'm not saying I agree with any of that. I'm just saying it's a fact. Yeah, it is a fact.
I have honorary cephalopod. No.
On to you again, Ryan.
All right. And we're going to talk about play, in particular, play with animals that you wouldn't typically associate utilizing play with. Something that I've been, pretty passionate about investigating with a variety of different species, and I feel like I've had a lot of success with different marine mammals, which, for some people might not be a surprise, but the way in which you can utilize that as a reinforcer, I think in a lot of scenarios exceeds utilizing food. So I'm thinking, seals, dolphins, dugongs. And I want to explore further with some of the ray species, I think, eagle rays and some of our other elasmobranchs. have capacity for play. I think we've just got to work out how to deliver it and what play actually means. I think that's, you almost need to get down to the semantics of that. But for me, when I utilize play with any of those species, I think the one thing that I always want people to do if they want to explore playing with their shark or their cat or whatever it be that you're working with and you haven't formed that dialogue like you would organically with a dog, for example, is that you want to have your precursors and your cues for play super, super, super clear from the outset. And I think what that enables you to do is to layer it in safely and to, it's like bite work with young dogs and whatnot. Like if we're doing it, we might say, always slip this harness on, always speak this way, always start it here, having all these really consistent bits of criteria that mean we're now going to offer you an event to play. And I think, with the dugongs and with some of the seals that I worked with, that's kind of where we got it really right, is by identifying some old like myths around play, like, you can't play with that species because once you start playing, they become possessive over the article and then they'll redirect onto you, or play with like tug of war type play will promote aggression. And once they start feeling like that, then, someone's going to get killed or whatever. And like, I shouldn't say they're myths, but like there's a little bit of a lot of devil to the detail, right? That where you can say, if your animal, and this is where I would always kind of lean into it with different marine mammals, is they go, well, this animal's, it's stealing cleaning equipment and then playing tug of war with the staff. It's snatching target poles off keepers and then ripping them out of their hands, then parading it around and we can't get it off them. And then I'm like, well, we probably need to start, encouraging a formal play-based routine for that animal. And they go, oh, no, we can't do play. You're going to promote aggression. I'm like, well, that horse has already bolted, guys. That ship has sailed. The animal's doing the behavior. Now let's put it on cue. And not only put it on cue, let's make it even better. Let's make it a more reinforcing event than what it was trying to do with your target pole or whatever. And sometimes it involves planning and being a good actor and getting a bit creative with what kind of toys you use. But for me, it's like, okay, set up your antecedent arrangements for play. But I reckon the best take home is with play, like predatory type play, tug of war type play, chasing things, you are now enabling yourself to put the animal in a state that allows us to think, could we recall that polar bear if someone climbed in the exhibit? We're putting it in a predatory state. We're teaching the animal, or we're learning from the animal, how does it think when we've taken into some of that play/prey emotional thinking. Because I believe, and I think you guys are much the same, when you're working with food, it can be very black and white. Mm-hmm. It can be very much a transactional kind of training experience. As soon as you start to involve toys and possession and chasing and tugging and shredding and stripping, you are now dealing with an animal in a different, an altered emotional state. So I guess, what are your experiences, take homes, ideas, thoughts on the topic? I know it's super broad and sometimes play transitions over into a predatory behavior or just eating or whatever, but rip in.
Well, I find this conversation's come up quite a bit with me recently with the work that I started doing with the team at Correctional Services.
Yep.
It kind of eluded me, again, back with marine mammal days, sea lions and dolphins we would play quite a lot with, more so dolphins than sea lions. Obviously, there's a big high play drive with the detection dogs, and in a lot of work that I've done with them, quite often, at least one per session will ask me, well, hey, do you play with, like, how do you play with your zoo animals? Like, how do you play with your lion and stuff? And we honestly don't have a lot of that as a reinforcer. So we started looking into this a little bit more with the elephants. Again, they're going to be an animal that we do see engage in behavior that we would say is play. Yeah. They squeak and they make particular vocals that are associated with playing when they're interacting with each other with various enrichment items. So we started to sort of layer this in while they were in a play session amongst themselves already. We're going to engage that with them and have begin our particular cues that we will use to say, hey, we're going to have a play session now. Or we will utilize it sort of like a Premack. We'll go, hey, when I'm going to give you this, again, elephant toys are giant and I can't always get them back, and I can't, physically I need to open a gate in order to get it back. But we may have them preset and then go, hey, we've done 90% of this session. Go have a play with that. Bring it back here if you want. If you just want to kick it around the paddock, all good.
Go for it. Yeah,
Go
this
nuts.
is about you.
This is about you.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a part of this as part of the reinforcement with this. And hey, I might hook you some food, or I'm gonna pay this particular thing quite well.
Yeah.
Or we have smallish toys that we can pass back through to them. They know then if they come to bring it back, if they want to have some interaction with it, that they have to put it down and push it to you rather than go. Again, first mistake was, here's the tyre, and they're trying to hand it over the fence, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'm going to die. Teaching it, no, wait. Yeah. But if the toy's on the ground and they push it to you, great. We might ask them as part of that, to back away from it for us, so then it's kind of safer for us. But, same deal. When you think, to me, I think it's that, like we kind of talk about with making sure we have, watching behavior prior to a session, all these little extra things pre-Mac that we should be doing. You kind of reminded me when you were talking about it, we can't play with them because we don't want to encourage aggression. Yeah. Well, yeah. Prior to that, someone would have said you can't hand feed it because it's going to bite you. Yeah. And prior to that, you can't go in there with it. You're going to get,
get killed. Yeah.
No, we just need to work this next section a little bit better. Yeah. And have more structure around it, more communication with that animal to go, hey, you know the rules around this game. Yeah. We're never going to change the rules on you. But when we play this game, which is working with food, these are our rules. Yeah. When we play this game, my friend, you can throw it across that. You can do whatever you need to do.
And I think you just reminded me, one of the incidences that I was a part of, a young sea lion who was notoriously slow to transition between exhibits and stuff. And we worked out he would do it for a handful of toys. Like he would sell his soul for these couple of toys. And then so we started using them a lot in training, but we didn't use a release word for him to be able to bite the toy. And then so someone else was working him and they were taking this toy with him. And then he got in his head, oh, if you guys got the toy as I'm being shifted, chances are I'm going to get that toy. Totally makes sense. And then she made a movement and he was like, oh, that means my toy's coming. No verbal marker, nothing. We hadn't conditioned any of that. And then he snapped for it and got her completely by accident. So we think. And then the knee jerk is almost like, that's it, stop playing. No one's allowed to play with sea lions ever again because you could get bitten. And it's like, well, no, if we just instead really strongly condition a marker word that means now you're allowed to bite versus just, ignore it.
Willy-nilly.
Yeah, exactly. We can just desensitize you to that piece of equipment. And again, back to the detection world, it's amazing how many handlers I know around the world that have been bitten by Labradors pretty badly, working in, back of house at airports or whatever, because the animal's made a find, and then they've just gone for the toy and they don't use clear markers that mean you're allowed to bite. And then the animal's like, oh, I've done the thing, just launching for it. Yeah, your thumb's in the way, stiff shit. I'm smashing it. A lot of, it requires some thought, but I think it's incredibly underutilized.
And especially with the know your species, know your animal. Yeah. What particular taxa can we do this with? What does play look like for them?
Yeah.
What's the purpose of play in that species? Are they just learning how to kill something, or are they?
Yeah. What does it look like,
I mean, we're all pretty experienced with cheetahs, and I mean the cheetah runs of chasing the rags and stuff, that to me, that's a pretty blurry line because it's very natural, predatory response type behavior, but they definitely know it's not the real thing.
We did a lot of flirt pole stuff with cheetahs, running around, soccer balls and things like that. They were always focused on the toy, and the way that we did it was never associated with food when we play. And I think a really valuable thing which I see across a lot of different species is the way we approach play there is it's very much optional. It's a training session. If you're doing a training session, we're working with motivations. We're expecting you to participate. If we go in and start kicking a ball around or offer a flirt pole and you go, not interested today, it's that's okay. That's completely fine. Yeah, sick. And totally I think the whole, knowing your animal, it's such a unique way of getting to know your animal because
I agree.
You haven't done this whole antecedent. Well, I mean,
eventually you will.
There is, but in terms of making sure that their motivation's right, making sure that we've got the best possible food on offer and whatever. It's just literally saying, hey, what interests you? How do you move in this? How do you respond to this? And can give you so many more ideas as to how to approach training and what behaviours you might be able to achieve, and just generally build that bond away from those gifts that we can get so focused on.
We set that up with tactile with the elephants as well. Where we have, this is your what. Tell me where you want to be scratched.
That looks very different to me.
And so Carvey especially will offer his ear up. He loves the inside of his appears to love the inside of his ear scratched. Or they'll stand there and just put their ass to you, and they're like, you know that if I'm doing this, I'm gonna give you a scratch. Wherever
that's
you
consent based, right? Like, I mean, you go, here's the opportunity. If you want to come and participate in it, I'm not luring you with food to do the behavior. It's offered for that.
Same with
secondary reinforcer.
Dolphins, we would we would call them free pats. So again, you'd put your hands in the water, or you'd get like those big woolly bloody gloves to clean with. Anything that's a different tactile, you just sit there, and there might have been 15 dolphins in that lagoon system, and 8 of them would come over and like almost line up, swim past, do a full rub on you. Next one would come along, do a lap. Others would go Squeak. I don't think has ever come up for a free pat in her life. But there'd be ones that'd be there. Are you gonna give me a pat? What? But it's that option up to you. But it has a precursor. It has a cue or an antecedent arrangement for whatever.
I think we've done some deep dives as Deane and I are writing this book at the moment about if you're going to keep species in any kind of facility, whether it be a open range facility or something in an inner city or even a slightly controlled private game reserve, that if you want to keep up to date with welfare and mental fulfillment and biological fulfillment, you need to start thinking outside the box with these things, and I think that's where we can go to that next level of going, well, if we actually want to hold our hand on our heart and say we're doing the best for them, you've got to start thinking. Just because no one's done it before doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. Doesn't mean you shouldn't provide them with something other than, I chucked a few fish in a tub and threw it in there. Like, that's play. It's like, that's horseshit.
Yeah. Is it really?
Yeah.
Put it in this thing again for the 18,000th time. This animal's seen it. It's a puzzle feeder.
Yeah.
Enrichment tick.
Yeah.
Really?
Glorified food bowl.
You're going to tell me that animal has reached its mental stimulation today because that's what you gave it? Please don't kid yourself. Please learn your animal better.
Cool.
Cheery finish.
Ding, ding, ding.